These are the Golden State Warriors, last year's champs, holder of last year's MVP Steph Curry, with additions of Jason Thompson, Ben Gordon, and Kevon Looney, and the loss of someone who barely played, David Lee. This is a team that, what can I say? They're offensively, defensively, they're elite. They have shooters, they have youth, they have depth. I worried that they wouldn't be able to keep this up, but it looks like they're going to sign back Barnes. There's so many components to this team that work. Now, Justin, maybe give people a little bit of preview of potentially what Jason Thompson can bring to this team, because he's gone under the radar for a lot of NBA fans, and potentially what the loss of David Lee could mean for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think David Lee was a very good player. I mean, 2 years ago, he was an all-star. It was just a kind of a matter of he got hurt. Draymond Green turned into this absolute versatile monster that really opened up a lot of possibilities for Golden State. So I think it really was a matter of fit. Now, when it comes to Jason Thompson, I think he's a player that really could fit well for this Golden State team. He's a fairly decent defensive player, rebounds the ball well, can space the floor, has a mid-range jumper. There's talk of him expanding his shot to the three-point line, but I'll believe that when I see it. There's always talk of players expanding to the three-point line in the postseason. It's just like every skinny player added 15 pounds of muscle and every fat player lost 15 pounds of fat in the offseason. So we'll see how legitimate that is. But when you're really looking at this front court rotation, you have Festus Ezeli that he came out in a big way in the postseason. It really looks to be kind of the heir to Bogut's throne or his starting spot whenever he does his time does run up with the Warriors, or whenever he is hurt, which unfortunately is fairly frequent. You have Mo Spates, that's probably still going to be the first power forward off the bench, but you just have even more depth in Jason Thompson, someone that's 6'11", that could legitimately play both at center and at power forward. So they have a lot of versatility there. They have a lot of depth, and that's not even going into how good their wings are.
Oh, absolutely. And so when we're talking about these big, I actually completely agree with you with Ezeli. I think he's the future, because the one knock, I mean, if you're having to, pull at strings with this team, was that they didn't kind of go to Bogut at the end, and he seemed to be a bit slow. Maybe that's just a function of who they're playing and the style they want to play. They want to push the pace and get more fast break opportunities. I get all that. Do you think that Bogut is going to be a part of their future as long as his contract remains, potentially further than that? Or do you think they just really take on the youth? Because they're going to have to pay Ezeli, right? And they're having to pay Barnes. Some other guys like Iguodala may not be, or probably won't be part of their long-term future, just based on the salaries they'll have to pay out to Curry, Thompson, Draymond Green, who they just read up. Like there's a lot of money there. Now we know that the cap is going up. Do you think that we're going to see, who do you think is their core five that for sure is going forward? I guess we'll say it that way, because there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed, and that's my biggest worry long-term with them.
I wouldn't even give it a core five. I think Clay, Steph, and Draymond are the three that they really need to build around. They are going to have basically max room next summer. They're going to be able to make a free agency pitch at Kevin Durant. I don't know if that's something Durant's going to be interested in. From a strictly winning perspective, there aren't many better places to go. So we'll see what that is. I don't think they're going to commit a ton of money before they explore their options in free agency. They might even go out and get someone like an Al Horford. So there are a lot of options there. I would be a little cautious if I was going to give a lot of money to Harrison Barnes. He's not really someone... He can adequately defend 3-4 positions, which is huge in Golden State's defensive schemes, but he's not really someone that can create offense for himself. He hits really open shots because of what Steph Curry creates, which, I mean, isn't a knock on him. There's a lot of players that don't hit the open shots at the clip he does, but a lot of what his production is kind of predicated on those other guys creating for him. So if someone's looking to offer him a max contract, I don't think that necessarily would be wise for Golden State to match that. Zealy's probably going to be a big part of the future. I see Bogut sticking around. But outside, I think if you retain Curry, Clay, and Draymond, which most of them are all locked up for pretty long-term deals, I think you're in a really good position to be competitive for a long time.
Yeah, I can see it that way. I think there's a lot of sense. Now, obviously, this was the best team last year. Having them at number one doesn't seem like a huge shock. So, as always, we like to throw a little bit of a wrinkle in there. And I'll throw this to you last second there, Justin. So, you actually alluded to a point I was going to bring up with Kevin Durant. Now, we spoke about it in our preview, or more I brought up I thought it was more of a problematic, and you thought it was less so, of Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Kevin Durant, free agency looming, potentially Golden State being a potential suitor. Could you see kind of a, Klay Thompson, Harrison Barnes, and Festus Ezeli for Durant and Cantor, just to shed Cantor? You're giving away the best player in that.
There's no need to do that, because you can sign Durant straight up. I take Ezeli over Cantor, so I don't know why you would have to give up a Klay Thompson and an Ezeli when you can just sign Durant without taking on the tax of a Cantor. So if I'm going to say, there's no way I even consider that.
But wouldn't they have to sign Barnes before considering that at that point?
No, you don't. I mean, they've talked about an extension with Barnes, but he's a restricted free agent next summer. I mean, he's going to have a small cap hold, but you're absolutely not obligated to signing Barnes prior to courting Durant.
Okay, I suppose it was just in my mind. I'm like, how best to maximize Westbrook? Put Clay and then Barnes next to him, and it starts creating this little
it's good for OKC. OKC. I mean, if you're going to lose Durant, which I don't think they will, but if you're going to, obviously you'd want to get that. But it makes absolutely no sense for Golden State.
Fair enough. And obviously Curry's going to be making a lot of money going forward. I mean, if you had to say, because we've spoken on all the positives, and those are obvious. If you had to, say, what are you worried about? I mean, beyond perhaps Steph's ankles, is there something you have to be worried about? Maybe their style of play, small ball not continuing. I mean, I'm just pulling at straws at this point. But is there something that you would be worried about if you're in that franchise?
One thing I'll say, Draymond Green is probably going to be the X factor for me moving forward. We're talking about a guy that's 6'6", 6'7" in shoes, that's been playing. I mean, he has had issues in the past with kind of weight. He's had back issues. He played center, power forward against guys that are a lot bigger than him. So there's a lot of wear and tear there, and they're asking a lot out of him physically. So with that, you'd kind of wonder how long he can really hold that up. And you'd also wonder, last season he kind of came out of nowhere. He blindsided the league. There was so much focus on Steph Curry and the emergence of Klay Thompson that it really allowed him to kind of operate in the shadows a little bit. But with teams having an offseason to really look at this team, to really scheme against it, and they saw kind of in the finals that when Draymond Green wasn't really as effective, it really did slow down the Golden State offense. You're looking at Green for his career. His rookie year, he shot 32%. He shot 40% his second year. And then last year, out of nowhere, that's up to 44.3. So you wonder how much of that's an aberration. Can teams scheme against that? Can they take that away from him? He's only a 32% three-point shooter. So if you wonder how much he can really keep up that defensive impact, given his physical limitations when it comes to size. You wonder how sustainable the offense is. I mean, really, he was a top 3 defensive player in the entire NBA last year. But given how much is asked of him and given his limitations, he's going to be the X factor moving forward. If he continues to improve, my God, they got him at a bargain, a deal at $5 million or 5 years for $82 million. But I mean, if you're going to nitpick and you're going to really try to dissect this and try to see a problem with Golden State, this is one area that I think potentially you could find one. I don't know how likely it is, but there are concerns that could be found there.
I agree with you there, and I'll just throw out this last thing. Is it possible that losing Harrison Barnes would actually, more than anyone else, negatively affect Green? Because I feel that he's a nice counterbalance on that wing, and I feel he potentially could get less credit than he deserves for the ascension of Green. I mean, Green, his hustle and defense, I understand all that. But on the offensive side of the ball, I think Barnes allows Green to operate in a way that if it was more of a ball dominant guard, a guy who didn't hit those open shots, because someone in that front court has to hit those open shots. And while, Green is not terrible, I mean, as you said, he's not great, and having Barnes there allows them to play that offense. Could you see something where them losing Barnes and not replacing with someone like Kevin Durant kind of lets the cat out of the bag with Green, or do you think Green's kind of, we'll say slide proof in that regard?
I don't think that would really hurt Draymond Green a ton. I think if you just replace Barnes with another player that can shoot and space the floor a little bit, it's going to really help them out. I don't think that would be my biggest concern with him. I mean, it's tough to make a legitimate case for Barnes being super important when his backup was Finals MVP. I think he is fairly replaceable. I don't think there's a lot. I mean, he certainly had a lot of upside coming into the NBA, but I do think he is a player that they would be able to replace, and it wouldn't necessarily need to be with a star.
So could you theoretically see him in a sign-in trade, or do you think they would just let him go? Or
sign-in trades are more or less kind of written out of the CBA. I think they're going to try to extend him for the cheap, or they offered him a pretty significant deal already and he turned it down. So I wouldn't be stunned if they traded him. I think they're going to ride it out. I think, once again, they're going to have a really good shot at winning it all this year. So I think they're going to keep that group together and just explore options in free agency. I don't think there's any real harm in letting a guy walk and then going out there and signing a replacement. So I don't think they're really going to explore a trade, but it wouldn't be something that totally stunned me.
Exactly. Well, guys, as you can tell, we're both big fans of these Golden State Warriors. As hard as a job it's been for us to find these faults, there's so many good things. They are the defending champs. They have the defending MVP. We want to know, do you guys agree, or is there something we missed? Is there something that's going to make them slide? Remember, this is regular season, not playoffs. Golden State Warriors, we have number one in the West. So leave the comments below. This is Worst to First. Phil, Justin, hoopslounge.com.